What's going on, everyone? My name is Burke, and today I will be bringing the Week 5 power rankings for the PIC. There were a lot of good battles this week. I really enjoyed a lot of them. Some of them were not nearly as close, but without further ado, let's just hop straight into my number 11, and at number 11 I have the Chester Chinchous. I'm not going to spend any time on them. They did drop out, unfortunately, and they lost 6-0 this week, so without them actually participating, I'm not going to spend much time or any time. So number 11, Chester Chinchous. Moving on to number 10 though, I have the Dallas Darmanitans, who beat the Chester Chinchous this week, picking up their first win, so good for them. I'm still not a fan of first turn setup. Not only that, he got a little bit too greedy, and he could have dealt huge damage to the Heatran first turn, really whittling it down for the Mega Scizor, but decided to set up 2 Dragon Dances and then got roared out. So I don't like first turn setup, I never do, but like it can work sometimes if you see if your opponent doesn't have a lot of good things for it, but still, no. Yeah. He did get lucky with the Scrafty when he eventually got it back in and forced out the Heatran, and his opponent goes into the Girder. He was able to set up 2 Dragon Dances, and for some reason Joe decided to just go for Mach Punches. No Drain Punches, which would have done a lot of damage to Scrafty, but because of that he was allowed to set up and kill both the Girder and the PZ. Granted, it did get paralyzed due to a discharge. Surprising that Scarf PZ still outspeeds +2 Scrafty, but you know, PZ's fast. And Scrafty was really able to just kind of punch a hole in his opponent's team, and then he was able to use Porygon 2 very well. I really like how he's using Porygon 2. Porygon 2 is such a good wall in League format, despite the knockoff weakness. It's like one of my favorites, despite the knockoff weakness. Like, there's some good ones, you know, Chansey, it's okay. I hate Chansey though, but it's okay, but the knockoff weakness really hinders it. P2, because of its above average bulk anyway, and then with the good stats to back it up offensively, it can actually do some work. And this time it did. Just try attack the world. Just kept try attacking. It whittled down the Heatran, whittled down the Mega Altaria, because he used it to switch into the Mega Altaria, take the Hyper Voice, and able to Toxic it. And once that got whittled down, and once the Heatran got whittled down, Mega Scizor could just come in, set up a Swords Dance, and then just kind of clean up the game from there. So I like how he played this game. He played it very smart, just made the correct switches. After that first turn setup, after that was done, then I think he was playing very well, because I just don't like first turn setup. So good game for Nate. I hope he keeps this up, because this was just, he knew what he needed to do to win. Basically keep the Porygon 2 around just to whittle down everything, and then clean up with both the Scrafty and the Mega Scizor. So good game. At number 9, I have the Meath Mamoswines. Now, I said this last week, not particularly to him, but I said this last week just to people in general. If you don't plan for something, that's a very good way to lose. Because if you don't plan for something and your opponent brings that something that you didn't plan for, how do you kill it? Probably through luck or your opponent misplaying. Jim brought absolutely nothing for Quagsire. No Toxic, no Grass moves. Only 2 ways to take down Quagsire, because Quagsire, even though it is an NU and it doesn't look very threatening, it used to be OU. It actually used to be OU. When I think it was either early ORS or very late X and Y, it was used to check Mega Charizard X. So it actually used to be OU. So it can do stuff, and it can just be annoying. Granted, it wasn't unaware, it was the Water Absorb set, but either way. He set up the rocks early and pressured Carson not to be able to spin the rocks away, which is really good on his part, because it really pressures the Mega Pinsir and the Victini. So those didn't want to switch in, because they're going to take, well, Mega Pinsir before Mega Evolving 25% and then 50% afterwards. Victini's going to take a nice 25% every time it switches in. And throughout this battle, they were pretty neck and neck throughout the beginning stages. However, he did let his only thing that had a chance to kill the Quagsire, being the Gengar, he let that go down. Basically to the Quagsire, you know, switch into a Scald, take a lot of damage, get burned, which, you know, obviously you can't predict getting burned, but it's Scald. You're always going to get burned. And then it dies. So now he's got pretty much no way to kill it, unless he sets up with Bulk Ups on the Quagsire. And he possibly could have, if he knew that the Quagsire was Water Absorb and not unaware. It's kind of hard to predict. But even still, I know Jim said, I could have set up on the Quagsire. That ain't happening, because what's going to happen is you're going to get Scald burned. You're really risking the Scald burn by doing that, or get Toxic. Yeah, maybe eventually you could have taken down the Quagsire, but your Gallade was going down with it. So overall, it just showed he did not prep at all for the Quagsire, and there was a lot of stall in this match trying to PP stall the Quagsire, which wasn't going to work because, you know, it's just going to continue to sit on the field, and he wasn't able to get rid of all its recovers, and it was just able to toxic pretty much everything and Scald Burn the world. And this is why you absolutely need to prep for everything. Don't be 100% convinced that something's not going to come to the battle, because you have no idea if something's coming to the battle. Prep for everything so you have at least one grasp. You don't need to like overly prep for everything, but you need to at least have something. So his playing I didn't think was bad. I think he actually played pretty well. He put a lot of offensive pressure on with the Thunderous, as well as making sure that the rocks didn't get spun away, pressuring a lot of the offense. It's just, how do you kill the Quagsire? You don't. So anyway, moving on to number 8. I have the Detroit Steelwings. Now, this was not a great match for Crimson, and by not a great match, I mean he got really haxed out. First turn, his Nidoqueen gets flinched by the Mega Swampert's Waterfall. It sucked. Why would you stay in on a Mega Swampert with your Nidoqueen? I get you wanted to set up rocks, but an EQ would immediately take out the Nidoqueen. There wasn't any point to really staying in. You had switch-ins, use them, but hacks were definitely not on Crimson's side this week. The miss burn on the Swampert was probably the worst. Also, he missed Mega Horn to break the sub on Cacturn, which allowed it to set up the +4 and then take out the Escavalier. But I don't really know why he didn't go for Iron Head in the first place. I get that Mega Horn is 4 times effective, but Cacturn is frail as all hell. So no matter what you do, you could slap it with a wet piece of paper and the sub would still break. It was a nice play going for Willow on the Cacturn, predicting the Sucker Punch with his Mega Gardevoir, and then going for Wish, predicting the next Sucker Punch, and then going for the Hyper Voice to finally kill it off when it doesn't go for the Sucker Punch. So I think he played around that very well. He let the Rotom go down way too early, because with the Rotom H down, he had no switch into Talonflame, and that was just able to clean up Crimson's team. It would have been able to fully sweep had it had Gale Wings this week, but it didn't, and at least he was able to kill the Talonflame with Staraptor, I guess. It would have been kind of like a kick in the balls if he also got burned on the Brave Bird on Talonflame. So overall, the hacks, I think, just, it really sucked. It never gave him a chance to get into the battle, because had the hacks not happened, I'm not one to say, had the hacks not happened, Crimson would have definitely won this battle. I can't say that. He was playing very well in the game, making a lot of correct predictions, but I'll never say that, well, had the hacks not happened, he would have definitely won. Now, had the hacks not happened, I think this would have been a closer match, by far, but I don't think Crimson necessarily would have won. Zach could have still won. Who knows? There's just so much that it's really hard to tell who would have won in this battle. Moving on to number 7, I have the LA Doublades. We brought some interesting sets. Well, mostly one, which was the Alum Quagsire. It's interesting, I guess. I get it. Get rid of his status, but I still don't see why you did it. Why bring that over lefties? Yeah, you'll get one turn less in Toxic, but still, it's only one turn less. It's not. I don't think that was really worth it. He did a good job of setting up rocks early, pressured switch-ins due to no removal. Thundurus Therian had pretty limited switch-ins at that point. He did call the bluff and switch into Thundurus's HP with his Quagsire. That might have been grass, so it was a little risky. And by a little risky, I mean it was pretty damn risky. If you predict HP, Ice, or Grass, why not double into something like Victini, to take it, or, like switch into Victini, take the next HP, and like double into your Thundurus. You could have made so many plays that would have been less risky, but it worked out for him, so I can't complain too much. He did let the Sand Slash take a ton of damage just to get a knockoff on the Thundurus, and then he was saying, well, I just gotta get it in on something to spin. That thing ain't never spinning anymore, because the low HP that it was at, and the fact that it was slower than all of Jim's team, that thing was dying to anything. So that was never gonna be able to get the rocks back off. And really, he was just able to stall out Jim's team with Quagsire. Quagsire came in and just kind of sat on the field a lot, and there really wasn't much Jim could do about it. But the thing is, he did play well with it. He made sure to preserve the Quagsire's HP throughout the battle, because it just took on Jim's team so well this week. He also made some really good offensive switches, getting into Lucario and then going for Swords Dance to take out the Bisharp and then almost kill off the Gallade. Not quite, because it was a more defensive Gallade. And then killed off the Gallade with a Mega Pinsir. And he basically won at that point because Thundurus nor Miltank could touch the Quagsire. So overall, I think he had the better team prep this week, and it really showed, you know. If your opponent doesn't bring anything to deal with one of your Mons, and you bring that one Mon that your opponent doesn't prep for, it's going to be pretty heavily skewed in your favor that you're going to win. Because you just send that in, and what does your opponent do to kill it? Pretty much nothing. And that's what he did. He made sure that Quagsire stayed healthy. Quagsire never got status because, you know, Jim didn't bring any status to deal with it. Besides, I don't even think he had Scalds. Quagsire was definitely the MVP this week for him. I mean, how often do you hear that? Quagsire was the thing I needed to win this battle. Not very often, but, you know, it happens sometimes. He's slowly moving up. I mean, this is his first win, and I think he played this really well, and I think if he plays like this coming in future weeks, I think he's going to keep winning. So, at number 6, I have the Carolina Castforms. I feel like I've said this in past weeks. Bring Thunder Punch on your Metagross when your opponent has a bulky water. It is so easy to tack on, and I think this would have made the battle so much shorter had he had Thunder Punch, because then he could switch into Mega Metagross and kill the Slowbro. But every time Slowbro came in, it was a hard stop to Mega Metagross because Slowbro is both Zen Headbutt and Meteor Mash and Bullet Punch. So put Thunder Punch on, put coverage moves on your Mega Metagross. I guarantee you, it'll work so much better if you do that. Kevia Berry Clefable, it was cool, good for Haxers. He said Flamethrower would be able to do a big, he could take a Sludge Bomb from the Mega Venusaur and deal big damage with the Flamethrower. Flamethrower ain't never dealing big damage to Mega Venusaur because it's Mega Venusaur. Thick Fat is a thing. He brought Choice Banded Sock this week. Choice Banded Sock is such a good set. It's a really underrated Mon altogether. Like, it just hits so damn hard. Granted, he did play very risky with it, but still. I love Choice Banded Sock. And Choice Scarf Tornadus, very interesting. Not a Mon you normally see Scarf, but I could see his thought process. Let's outspeed all the Scarfers on my opponent's team and then kill those with an extremely fast Mon that is actually now pretty damn powerful because it's modest. He was able to take down the Fortress really early with Heat Wave, and then he switched out fearing the Salac Explosion. That was good, or at least attempted foresight. His opponent didn't have Salac Berry Explosion, but you know, it was good that he was thinking of that. Also, you can bluff not having a Scarf on Tornadus, kinda. He used Clefable very well to deal with both Bramble and Typhlosion. Granted, the exchange with Clefable and Typhlosion, he was able to get a few special attack drops, which prevented Clefable from actually going down, but still, he was able to just kind of take both of those on really well. And you can see, the Kevy Berry actually did do something. It prevented Clefable from going down from one Sludge Bomb, but then he got paralyzed, and even still, Flamethrower would do almost nothing. He switched in his Sock on a Scald. Why would you risk the burn like that? Sock is kind of an important Mon. You know, it hits really hard, it's Choice Banded, and if it's burned, it's not doing anything. So, that was extremely risky. He didn't get burned, so I was lucky for him, but still, very risky. And he played really, really poorly around the Slowbro this game. He just let it set up to +3/+3, and then had no good ways of hitting it really hard physically, because I think Sock had gone down at that point. And it's like, this is why you need Thunder Punch on your Mega Metagross, because that would have ended it much sooner. Luckily, his opponent didn't have Slack Off on the Slowbro this week, so at the very least, as he whittled it down, that was it. It was getting whittled down. There was no leftovers either, so there's no passive recovery. And he was able to wear the Slowbro down enough to the point where he forced the switch and then was able to clean up with Tornadus at the end, air slashing both the Slowbro and the Mega Venusaur. So Tornadus did really well this week, and he played really well this week. Like, Trav, I think, played very well. The biggest thing with him is I still think his planning is a little bit off. Mostly with the Mega Metagross. Like, he just does not seem to put the coverage he needs week to week on the Mega Metagross. Just, it's always lacking, like, electric coverage that it can get, but he just does not seem to want to put it on. If he had put on Thunder Punch, I think this would have been an even bigger differential battle, because his opponent was not playing well this week. I gotta say, just not doing too well, but still, his playing seemed fine to me, except around that slow bro. There were, you know, it's a little scary dealing with a setup mon like that, and then you're kind of scrambling for what do I do? Thunder Punch it with a Mega Metagross, that'll kill it. But anyway, moving on to number 5, I have his opponent, the Denver Blitzels. Ooh, this was not a great game for Jude. He had some interesting sets. Magnet Rise on Electivire to deal with Dugtrio. Interesting. You have to predict the Dugtrio to come in, but if you can predict that and go for the Magnet Rise, that deals with it pretty well. Sunny Day Heat Rock Typhlosion's cool. Didn't do much. It's cool though. And then the Weather Ball Mega Venusaur to kind of like finish off this, I guess, like pseudo Sun team that he's trying to bring. Pretty cool. Weather Ball didn't also do anything, but you know, it's interesting to see on Mega Venusaur. He did not play well in the early game. He let his Fortress take huge damage just to get rocks up, and then once rocks got set up on his side, he wasn't able to spin because he'd send out the Fortress and then it would just die. He also let his Gramble take a lot of damage from the Clefable. Then the whole exchange between Typhlosion and Clefable, it didn't work out for him because of the special attack drops, but I didn't really understand why he kept staying in. And then the time he switches out, it's when Typhlosion's at 18%, which will die 2 rocks, and the way he switched it out, he sacked off Fortress, which was death fodder, which I can see, you know, have some death fodder in the back, but you're preserving Typhlosion as death fodder by sacking off more death fodder. He should have just stayed in that point, kept Lava Pluming, maybe finished, you know, at least got out of the exchange with Clefable having some damage on it instead of having full health. He was able to pressure his opponent well with Slowbro, but the lack of recovery limited stay on the field, and that definitely wasn't great for him, because if it had slack off, it probably could have successfully set up and swept the rest of his opponent, but you know, no slack off. Now, hindsight is hindsight, but still, he tried to use it more as a pivot than a setup sweeper, so I can see why he didn't have the slack off, but still, kind of nice to have slack off on Slowbro. And if you look at his just overall team structure, he just did not have switch-ins to Tornadus this week. Just flying in general. He had no resist, so every time Tornadus came in, it could go for Air Slash if it so choose, instead of just continually clicking U-turn, and then U-turn, and then U-turn. But he had no switch-ins to it, and it really showed because Tornadus was just kind of able to clean up his team at the end. The only switch-in would have been a +3 special defense Slowbro, but you know, I think it was overall kind of, his team prep was cool. Like, I liked a lot of the sets, but overall it just, it was odd. It was odd team prep, and then his playing early game, I don't think he was really in the game, and his opponent was just able to really take control of the match until, you know, the misplays around Slowbro. Overall, it wasn't a great match for Judy, but I think if he fixes up some mistakes he's making in team planning and then makes sure to do his calcs and all that in battle, I think he's going to do much better going into future weeks. At my number 4, I have the Bury Butterfrees. I still have no idea if that's how you pronounce it. I'm going to assume that's the way it is. Bury, you know, whatever. Someone's got to correct me. Eventually someone's going to correct me on that. The Taunt Sneasel was interesting. Try to taunt Mew first turn. That definitely backfired, taking Sneasel all the way down to Sash. I don't really understand why he went. I mean, I can understand why he went for taunt, but at the same time, the knockoff was just a better play altogether, or switching out if you're fearing Colberberry, something like that. However, thanks to the Sash, he was able to take out the Mew in one hit with the knockoff. I don't really know why he went for the knockoff against the Alomola. You knew it wasn't going to do much. I guess, I get you wanted to get rid of the leftovers, but still, you could have saved a knockoff hit for something other than the Alomola, considering you had a pretty safe switch in for Manaphy. Granted, yeah, you don't want to lose the item on the Manaphy. He let himself get stuck in a stalemate with the Bronzong setting up rocks and the Zapdos defogging. Without any way for the Zapdos to reliably take down the Bronzong, it's just going to be you defog, it sets up rocks, and while you're burned, you're going to lose that fight because it can just stall you out by continually setting up rocks, and then you're going to eventually go down to burn, or you're going to have to roost and nothing's going to come of it. I think he used the Entei very well. It put on a lot of offensive pressure. All he needed was the Alomola out of the way, and he was able to successfully get the Alomola out of the way. And then what switches into the Entei? Well, in this case now it was Mega Diancie, which took Choice Band Sacred Fire pretty decently for Mente. He elected to switch into both Mega Diancie and Crawdaunt this week. It really showed. Granted, he doesn't really have good switch-ins to those two on his entire roster, so I can see why he didn't have a really good switch into them in the battle, because Mega Diancie is just, oh my god, that thing is so powerful. And Crawdaunt, same thing. It's a wall breaker. How do you really easily switch into a wall breaker? You don't. At the end of the battle, though, he did look like he might have been able to take it with his Excadrill, because it would have been able to outspeed the Mega Diancie and then kill it with an Iron Head. But unfortunately, Diancie had set up. He put himself in a position where the Diancie was going to be able to set up 100% and then lost to 2 Earth Powers. So it was a really good game, and he's playing really well, and his planning, I think, is effective. I don't really have many complaints. It was just this week he didn't really have great answers for Bronzong. Every time Bronzong came in, he was able to wall a lot of things on his team. Even though he, Entei is a thing and Excadrill is a thing, still Bronzong was able to wall a lot of his team. And the things that Bronzong wasn't able to wall, Alomola walled pretty damn well. So he just didn't have great ways of breaking through the wall core clean and then coming out ahead. I can see him continuing to get more wins and then getting back onto the winning side of things. At number 3, I have the Kutztown Krookodiles. Now, there's really not too much to say about him this week because that battle was extremely hacksy, but the first thing I have to say is check your sets. Talonflame had Flame Body this week. Check your sets. They can lose you a battle. I know. I lost the battle because once I had a Mega Sharpedo and it didn't have Speed Boost and it had Rough Skin, and I lost the battle literally because of that. Literally because Showdown changed my ability back from Speed Boost to Rough Skin. So I've been burned by that. And you cannot go into a battle not knowing if your sets have been messed up. Right before you go into battle, check the sets. Just like scroll through. Is everything the way it looks like it should be? It's just a very easy way to prevent yourself from getting caught off guard like this. I do like the Pseudo Rain team with the Damp Rock, Rotom Fan. Very interesting set, allowed him to be able to set up the rain for his Mega Swampert. First turn flinch was nice, prevented rocks from being set up, although EQ would have killed. I get why he wanted to go for the Waterfall, predicting like maybe Rotom Heat to come in to take the Earthquake, but still, Earthquake I think would have been a overall safer play, and you don't have to play around with the flinches. I don't really know why you'd send your Swampert on the Rotom Heat. He almost got burned, but misses happen, and this just kind of went on a lot in the early game. There's a lot of early game predictions that he's getting wrong and Crimson's getting right, and Pokemon's Pokemon, so he comes out ahead due to some hacks. Now, I'm not trying to take away from him. He's a very good player, and past weeks he's been playing very well. And this week he wasn't playing bad. It was just he was not making the correct predictions, but still getting ahead somehow. Subcacturn able to take down the Escavalier, albeit with a miss. So, that's, again, a little bit more. Because of that miss, he was able to set up to +4 and then take down that with a Sucker Punch. And then he lost his Cacturn because he was being predicted with the Sucker Punch plays, which was very good on Crimson's part. I do like how he uses Cacturn. It's a mon you don't see very much in League play, and he's using it very well. And I really like that because I like seeing lower tier mons do a lot of work. And Cacturn especially, it's a very cool mon to see used because it hits so hard, but it's just so frail and kind of slow. But after things like the Escavalier went down, the Rotom Heat went down, anything like that, Talonflame just could have swept up had it had Gale Wings. But because of not having Gale Wings, it was not able to kill a Staraptor at the end. Had Crimson known it didn't have Gale Wings, he could have switched in the Staraptor first, killed the Talonflame, and then maybe it would be a little bit more of a battle. But how do you predict Showdown messing up and not having Gale Wings? So, overall, even without the hacks, I think he probably still could have won this one. It would have been a much closer battle, but it was some, I think, poor early game predictions, but then also the hacks just kind of let him stay out ahead of every single matchup. He was able to take down things like the Rotom Heat, and his Mega Swampert doesn't get burned. I think Zach does prep well, and I think he can play very well week to week. This week just was kind of a little bit, but, you know, he won. So he's going to stay up decently high because he keeps winning week to week, so I can't really complain about that. At number 2, I have the Amityville Haunters. He had a bye week this week, so I'm not talking about him. And at number 1, I have the Cape Arboks. He is currently one of the undefeated teams, and I like some of the sets he brought this week. AV Mew could have definitely put in a lot of work. The rest of the sets, though, they were fairly standard. I just really like that Mew set. Again, Bronzong just kind of put the team on his back this week. Did so well against the Mega Latios and the Zapdos. He made some questionable plays. I don't see why you would stay in with the Mew and the Sneasel. Even if the crit mattered, you had a very, very easy switch into the Alomomola to take like a knockoff. Like, you got the first prediction right, and then you got crit. It sucks, but still, you had the easy switch. I don't know why you'd even risk letting the Mew get its AV knocked off and taking about 90% damage. He really knows how to use his wall core really well. Able to use both Alomomola and Bronzong to wall most of his opponent's team. Bronzong walled a lot of the special threats, and the things that Bronzong didn't wall, namely the Excadrill and the Entei, Alomomola just kind of came in and ate any of the hits. So he knows how to use his wall core really well, and it really shows. He knows what he can switch into, what he can't. He played well around the Manaphy, able to take it down before it's set up. Krookodiles tanking an energy ball from a Manaphy, and then knockoff dealing a clean, what was it, like 75% to it? So Krookodiles, such a beast. Bronzong was able to tank all the hits from the Mega Latios, really wear that down. Actually, I think it was a double down. Toxic was eventually enough to bring down the Mega Latios. And at the end, he said he kind of panicked. He didn't know what he could do to win with just the Mega Diancie, but you have set up, your opponent has out an Entei that is only able to Sacred Fire because of Choice Banded. And he did see that, oh, if I set up a Rock Polish, I do outspeed both of them, even if it's a Scarfed Excadrill, and then just kind of clean up the game with Earth Power. That is exactly what he did to win the game. It was very smart in him not to just go straight for the kill on the Entei, use it as setup fodder, and then finish off the game with his Mega Diancie. So overall, I think it was a very close match. I think it was a really good match played on both ends. There was some just kind of really weird first turn, early game predictions that cost both of them kind of big, but then towards the middle and the end game, they both were playing very well, and the Cape Arboks just had a little bit more to get through that match with the Mega Diancie. So very good game on him. He is currently undefeated, and he's going to stay there. He does play Juan, who is the other undefeated team next week, so we're going to see who is going to come out on top as the undefeated. But that is going to wrap up the Week 5 power rankings for the PIC. I hope you all enjoyed. There were some really good matches this week, and I'm really looking forward to next week's matches. Unfortunately, due to the dropout, there will not be 5 battles a week. There's only going to be 4, because it's basically 2 bye weeks for the people that play the Chester Chinchous. So in the coming weeks, the power rankings will again be a little bit shorter, just because there's only 4 battles to go on instead of 5. So, you know, some people aren't even playing. But anyway, that's all I got for today. My name is Burke. I'll see y'all next time.